Call the regular city council meeting of December 5th, 2016 to order. We do have a quorum. Let's please stand and pledge to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All individuals are asked to either silence or turn off cell phones, pages, or other electronic devices that may disrupt the meeting. Approval of the agenda. Approve the agenda is posted in accordance with the open meeting law. Here on place all agenda items on the table for discussion. What's the wish of the council? I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I got a motion by Mayor Zilka, second by Councilman Hansen to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the minutes. A copy of the minutes for the special work session meeting of November 21st, 2016, the regular meeting of November 21st, 2016, and the closed meeting of November 21st, 2016 are enclosed. What is the wish of the council?
Second.
We got a motion by Councilman Knopfler, second by Alderman Hercock. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the bills, checks number 95,453 through 95,504 totaling $169,605.98. Mr. Gushek?
Turn to page 6. Page 7. Page 8.
Back on page 7, the city pays itself for water and sewer.
Yes.
How ridiculous.
We gotta keep track of that stuff.
All gotta be kept track.
Cost of doing business.
Oh, where are we at? Page 9.
9.
That's the totals, everything there. I'll make a motion to approve checks 95453 to 95504 for $169,605.98.
Second. A motion by Councilman Gushek, second by Councilman Wildergren to approve the bills. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Boards, donations, presentations, proclamations, we have none. Consent agenda. Agreement, Hometown Planning LLC, approve and authorize. Amend Library Branch Agreement, Great River Regional Library, approve. Application for display of fireworks, Little Falls Lions Club at the golf course, approved. Cable TV Review Board minutes, October 2016 received. Community Services Advisory Board minutes, September 2016 received. Housing Redevelopment Authority minutes, October 2016 received. Out-of-state travel, Fire Department, Sioux Falls, authorized. Park Rec and Tree Board minutes, August 2016 received. Planning Commission minutes, August, September, and October 2016 received. Police Department report, October 2016 received. What's the wish of the council on the consent?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gushek, second by Councilman Knopfler for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public hearings and lettings, public meeting, 2017 budget informational meeting. John?
So as we discussed quite a bit in the work session, we have tonight is our time to approve the budget for 2017. This is for the entire budget, including the general fund and setting the tax levy payable in 2017, and for all of the special revenue and enterprise funds. As we met back in November, presented our budget, which was kind of the follow-up to what we presented as a preliminary budget with truth and taxation statements. The preliminary levy went out with a 10.29% increase. We came back at the work session in November. The council gave direction to try to achieve a 4.9% increase. And tonight we actually have a budget that we presented that for the property tax levy purposes is a 3.76% increase. However, we have gotten notification of what the market valuation is going to be in 2017, and with the increase in the market valuation, we actually see a tax rate that is almost flat to what the tax rate was in 2016 versus 2017. So here are the totals that were requested, and then what the administration budget and the amendments that we've made to have the totals for those budgets. So with these include what the tax levy revenue, our revenues will be, what our anticipated revenues will be from other resources. For the general fund, mostly the other revenue resources and local government aid. Then with Parks and Rec, a lot of that fund is transferring from the general fund. Airport operating, the cost share that we have between the county, the funds that we receive in FAA, water and wastewater and our utility funds, the 600s. Those are enterprise funds that have utility rates that are associated that help generate revenue. With those, we don't have the rates for presentation tonight. We will do that at the next meeting in December. However, we're anticipating the water and wastewater usage rates to stay the same, and that the water utility rate have a multiplier increase to the 1 inch and above meters, and then the base rate for the sewer for all users go from $10 a month to $15 per month. This is a follow-up to what we discussed last year, that with the wastewater fund, we were going to need additional base fee to help actually cover the actual debt service costs that we were already incurring. We did not make these increases. We would have seen that fund's improvement fund, which was subsidizing that part of the cost, and an annual basis completed within 2 years. So by doing this, we will get to the point where that fund will be sufficient, self-sufficient, and not have to subsidize any further amounts into there, and should be able to handle the debt service for years to come. So this is the final major increase. There may be smaller ones moving forward in the future, but we do achieve that intent of getting the base fee to cover that debt service and capital improvement costs that we're seeing. So I think it's a good measure and effort on our part. So overall, between the request and the admin, it is a slight increase. Much of that is in the garbage and recycling, where we were assuming a similar bag system for garbage. Now we're moving to potentially a hybrid system for garbage bags and carts, which would be just additional revenue and expense. So in the general fund is composed of many different departments. So we try to break out in terms of what those costs are and giving some reasoning for some of the difference. So a lot of what we presented in November is a decrease. There are a couple instances where there's an increase, and that's just because now we have firm numbers. The county attorney being one of them, with a prosecution agreement that we approved last meeting. We don't know what that cost is going to be for our attorney associated costs for 2017. In terms of wages and benefits, we're still in negotiations with the union, so those are kind of fluid at the moment, but we're getting closer. We do have one agreement in place. Otherwise, the major reductions that we see in what we talked about in the meetings, we have projects that we initiate that have revenue or resources that are outside of the general fund. So like with Public Works, the engineers go out and do engineering work for the street projects that we have on an annual basis, and those are funded through project funds and then the associated debt service funds for those accounts moving forward. So we actually, to get the true cost of those projects, we actually budget our time out and build that time towards those project funds rather than out of the general fund budget. So we looked at it 2 years worth of hours, actual hours billed out from those employees, and made some determinations of what those adjustments could be. In street department, a lot of them do additional work within stormwater collections or wastewater. So those times, budget times that are not general fund associated, we made the reduction, because otherwise we're accounting for 100% of everybody that's a street employee, when actually we're budgeting out part of their time into a different fund. So those different funds then see the associated costs come out on their side. So it's kind of a balancing system to ensure that those costs are properly accounted for. But this is where we feel from the administration presentation, the recommendations, that we can lower those costs and bill out those associated projects, knowing that there are those projects moving forward next year as well. So then at the very bottom, you'll see the biggest, that's that other component is all of the various transfers, and that's on the next slide. So those are in the transfers out, and these are going into the equipment fund. These are for capital items. These are in the capital improvement plan that was presented earlier in the work session. Those are showing the different projects that we're anticipating having to do in 2017, and transferring money out from the general fund to cover those costs. These are things that aren't going to be on an annual basis, not an operating cost type item. This is going to be buying a new squad car is part of that cost. So it's things like that are associated that we don't determine as operating, but they're major pieces of equipment that we are otherwise going to need. Street improvement, we had a little bit of discussion about this in the work session. I want to touch on it again. With the $225,000 that we budgeted last year, that was a significant increase from about $75,000 that we were budgeting in previous years. This is going to do the fog sealing, crack sealing, filling, maintaining our streets, because we know that the maintenance, more money spent on maintenance is saving us money on replacement down the road and extending the life of the roads that we have, which is something that we had been falling behind in or not maintaining as a good practice before. So while we did realize that increase needed to be made, we saw some project costs come in below estimates, and are assuming that next year $195,000 is sufficient to cover the cost for those associated projects. The others are staying pretty similar. Insurance is just a group pool of what we have for our liability insurances for all the departments associated with the general fund. And the Parks and Recreation is a significant increase. The left side column is your 2016 budgeted number. The middle column is what we had in the requested budget that went towards the preliminary levy, and then on the right is the budget that we're presenting for approval tonight. It is an increase was a significant increase from 2016 to 2017, but it's quite a bit of a decrease from what we had preliminary presented. That's in actually establishing some better costs for the projects that we want to move forward with. It is increased projects, but they're lowering. We have a lower cost of what we expected them when we presented this back in September. So and then the transfers out the various are just common things that we have each year, mainly being associated fire equipment. So when we break it down, we need revenue to pay for these expenses. We have an EDA budget that's going to come up with, that's going to be a component of what we're going to levy for. We also levy for our Fire Relief Association. That's going into their retirement plan. The parking, which is the parking improvement fund, funds that are built up to build and maintain parking lots that we've had, similar to the county parking lot that we built where the old Boys and Girls Club was. That's where the funds came from to pay for that. And then debt service. Now, debt service is exactly the same total levy amount from what it was in previous years. However, the total levy or total debt service expenses are going to be slightly lower. We're just going to budget the same amount so that we ensure that we're building funds that we can pay future debt service down at an earlier rate, so that we're we're making an impact in reducing our overall debt service rather than taking on any new debt. And then, so when you add up all the expenses, subtract what we actually have in pledged revenue and add back in these levy increases, the amount that's going to go into the resolution for approval tonight would be $1,912,000 as the component to balance the general fund. So the overall general fund budget is a little over $5 million, but the amount that we need from the levy to balance that is 1.9. So when we actually approve the levy amount that we are requesting is going to be $3,698,800, and that represents a 3.76% increase over the 2016 levy. However, it's a significant decrease, almost 6.5% from the preliminary levy. So the truth in taxation statements that you had and went out to you, that a lot of people received the last couple of weeks, they're going to pay a lot less associated to that city line portion than what they are in that city line. So I also wanted to bring up the factor of market valuation in the market valuation that the county assessor provided for us. In 2016, our market valuation was close to $4.7 million. In 2017, they're estimating it to be $4.893 million. So what that means is that for those, a lot of the valuation of the property in our community went up. So that means the tax rate that they pay is going to be based on that valuation. So the actual impact of what happened is kind of interesting. Because of the way the market valuation was and what we needed to levy for last year, the tax rate was 75.27%. This year, based on the $3.6 million figure and the market valuation at 4.8, we're actually at 75.2%. So a very, very slight decrease. Now that said, a slight decrease in tax rate doesn't necessarily mean your taxes are going to change. That's going to be dependent upon what your actual valuation of your taxes are. So look at that taxation, that blue sheet that you got, the truth in taxation statement, your preliminary levy, and look at what your valuation is. So if your valuation stayed the same, well then you should see your taxes stay pretty flat in terms of what you pay for the city tax. If your valuation went up, your taxes are going to increase based on a percentage of what that increase to your valuation was. If your valuation went down, you're actually going to pay less in taxes. So this example is a residential homesteaded property valued at $165,000, and this happens to be my property. And in 2016, the portion of the city taxes that I paid was $1,073.35. On my preliminary tax statement, it was going to be $1,142.33, and what I actually will pay at this property tax levy would be $1,072.39, give or take. They have to do some adjustments in there to make things work, but that's relatively where it's going to be. Since my valuation stayed the same from 2016 into 2017. We also have our special revenue funds. Some of these have their own either levy component or other resources that go to pay for them. And a lot of this, for the Parks and Rec specifically, most of those funds come from a transfer from our general fund for their operations. We do have other revenue resources that go to pay for the parks. But as you can see, some of those components are raised for the budget for 2017, what we had requested, what we showed towards the preliminary, and what we actually have in 2017. This goes to Scott Sadusky. He does a contract rental housing inspections, and we have his contract on the agenda for tonight with the modification and increase in his services towards property nuisance control, blight issues, code enforcement items relative to property, so that we can actually be a little more proactive in that measure and handling some of the blight issues that we have in town. So he's agreeable to adding that service, but that's going to be at a cost. However, that's going to come out of the HRA budget, and they have the funds available to do so, and it isn't going to negatively impact impact their budget, and they'll still have some money set aside for projects moving forward that they can do in other housing and redevelopment issues. So then in the airport, we do see that budget coming down. However, there's revenue and expense that are going in there. They're pretty correlated. There's no increase in the amount that we're contributing from the general fund. The decreases in, we've seen the cost of fuel go down. We also sell fuel at the airport, which is a bigger component of their total revenues and expenses. So as fuel costs go down, it costs us less to buy it, but we can't sell it back at the higher rates that we had before. We'll never get rid of it, so we have to sell it back at a little less. So we're seeing less in revenue. So that's where the special revenue funds come in. Enterprise, this is back into the utility rate discussion, and this is with those rate estimates that I was assuming. However, with garbage and recycling, we're still in some flux in terms of how we're going to implement that with the move to carts next year. So while that being said, the revenue and expenses won't be out of alignment, because what we charge what we collect in utility bills is actually going to pay for the services that the haulers are providing. So it isn't necessarily that, unless we decide we're going to pay the haulers more, those should balance each other out. So what we see is now with these rate changes, the water and sewer funds actually have surpluses moving forward. There isn't any additional transfers going out from improvement funds that they're paying for debt service. We're clean in that realm, making these increases, and we're not increasing the usage rate. We do see some operating reductions in the sewer plant from the transition to not using lime in the process anymore. So that's a pretty significant cost savings for us. So that was part of the justification too, of not wanting to present increases in operating revenue. And we're actually seeing decreases in operating expense. Stormwater is pretty self-sufficient. It's a very small component of our budget, but just has some impacts. And then the golf course, now what we saw this year was try to build a relationship and consistency in hours, so that people knew we were going to be open, so that people could trust that they could go out there for lunch and be able to get lunch and not have to call ahead or just hope that somebody was going to be there to take a greens fees or everything. So we did a lot and a concerted effort in trying to build that consistency in time and hours, and that had a little bit of an expense in terms of additional part-time usage and probably not optimizing the part-timers that we had available. That also said, we had some additional expenses that were unanticipated, probably about $15,000 worth in costs that were associated with breakdowns or problems with items that we just had to get addressed and fixed and repaired in order to operate. We had a freezer in the clubhouse broke down a few times, and we actually had some major costs associated with getting that back up and running. So hopefully with that $15,000, not having to come out of the budget, we can, there's some things that we can anticipate for, or unknown things that we can budget for, but I would certainly wouldn't believe that should happen again. And optimizing our part-timers to be more efficient with their use and make sure that we have them there at times where we're generating revenue. That said, we still need to do something in terms of raising the overall rates, either I would say in membership, in greens fees, in cart rentals, and trails fees, and all of those components. And in order to get to a point where we're generating a surplus, I'm projecting that there's 10% increase in all those major revenue components in terms of the cost per go. So raising the memberships 10%, raising the greens fees 10%, raising the cart rental fees 10%, raising the trail fees 10%. That said, I still don't think that takes us out of alignment for where we stand in terms of our quality of course in the market that we have nearby. We had a 5% reduction in the membership rate last year for residents, and we actually saw the membership total revenues come in about the same. So that tells me that we had to gain members in order to maintain that revenue if we're actually decreasing the overall membership rate. So that said, I think there's the room to handle it. I think Rich is doing a fantastic job at the course and making sure that we're presenting the product that we need to warrant these increases. And I think that he's doing a very good job in maintaining and managing, will be doing a very good job in maintaining and managing those costs moving forward. I don't have any problems communicating with him. Greg Kimmon doesn't have any problems communicating with him in terms of making sure that the operations are what they need to be relative to the revenue. So it's not that we can't adopt and amend to do things as needed. And I think another component in that increased expense, and I'll say it tonight, we won't see it, we will see the golf course lose money this year. But we had one of the longest seasons we've ever had. I know personally as a golfer, that was the first time I've ever played golf on March 12th and November 15th in the same year in Minnesota before. So that's a pretty long golf season without much in terms of shutdown because of weather. So that's a good thing. However, it comes at a cost too, because we were trying to optimize staying open when we could stay open. And who knows what next year's going to bring in that. If it's more consistent, more regular, I think we'll be able to generate a profit with those increases. This is an example of what those utility rates are going to be. We are raising the multipliers. So the 1-inch multiplier, as you can see in the second column on the left, is 1.5 for 2016. It'll go to 1.7 in 2017, and then the associated rate increases is right next to those on the right side divider. The base rate at $13.25 would stay the same for the common user, the residential customer. That's the largest component of our users, and their base rate would stay the same. Also, in terms of usage, we pay on a per 1,000 gallons, and we have a tiered rate structure, so the more water you use, the more you pay for it, and we would keep that the same across the board. So at the very bottom, you'll see what those potential rate impacts would be. You're only going to see an increase if you have a larger meter, and that's going to be based on the meter size, and that's going to be a monthly component. Now, for those users, don't assume that an 8-inch water meter, we only have one of them, but they don't use 5,000 gallons a month. They use significantly more than that. So that, while that might look like a pretty significant rate increase to them, their total overall bill isn't going to be very large of an increase. But the justification for raising it on the meter size is they demand more use. It's more expensive for us to bring water to them. It's more expensive for us to install the infrastructure to get it to them. They're going to be the ones demanding more. Therefore, they should pay a higher burden of that cost when it costs us more to deliver that service. So then on sewer, sewer is a little bit easier because we don't have a tiered rate structure, and all users pay the same base charge. So that base charge is going to be going from $10 a month to $15 a month, whereas our usage charge is going to stay the same. So what they'll see is a $5 increase between however much water we use. So then if you combine the two, the typical or 5,000 gallon residential user is going to pay $5 per month more. And an 1.5 inch customer that uses approximately 25,000 gallons per month is going to see an increase just over $10. So that's what I have in terms of the budget.
Public meeting? Open up, anyway from the public, got any questions on the budget? Hearing none? From the council?
John, if you would just touch on, for somebody who didn't see us at our preliminary levy, which is so much greater than what we've come down to, if you just touch on, so they don't think that we didn't know what we're doing.
That's a very good point. It's, again, the way statutorily, the way things work, cities are obligated to set a preliminary levy, and they have to do so by the end of September. With that, it's 3/4 of the way or 2/3 of the way through our budget year in a lot of cycles, so there are a lot of things that are unknown and yet to be determined in terms of costs. At that time, we didn't have garbage figured out. We didn't have we weren't this far along in terms of union negotiations and wages and benefits and what those impacts are gonna be. So we had to make some assumptions, and we wanted to make some assumptions and higher CAD cost to ensure that we could lower the levy, because when we set that preliminary levy in September, we can't raise it. That's the maximum amount of funds that we could levy for moving forward next year. Now, if everything dramatically changed and the worst case scenarios came true, we would probably we would have been okay with that levy, and we would have been able to handle it. That was never our intent, and that's, when we were gonna make all the concerted efforts that we can to find this cost savings where we could, and we're gonna do our best to come in with union negotiations and benefits that were fair to both the employees and the employer, and get these contracts moving forward and still provide the utility services the way we wanted to, and ensure that they're adequately transferring those funds back to the general fund to cover their costs. So balancing everything, there's too many, I often feel there's too many unknowns that are gonna happen in those last 3 months of the year to warrant setting your levy low and constrain yourself with that dollar amount if something dramatically does change. So we want to plan for the worst case scenarios, knowing that we're going to be able to hopefully do better and bringing that cost down. So that was a lot of the discussion of what we presented, was these are the areas where the costs didn't come down.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We need no action, Kirk. Okay. On the lettings, accept recommendation from Airport Commission, appoint airport engineer Cattermass, Lee, and Jackson Incorporated, accept and authorize, correct?
Correct. The Airport Commission received 6 proposals for airport engineering. Typically, we go for a 5-year term or contract for airport engineering. We received 6 proposals for that. The top 3, the Airport Commission interviewed and selected Cattermass, Lee, and Jackson as the firm for the airport. And so tonight we are recommending hiring Cattermass, Lee, and Jackson for a 5-year term starting January 1, 2017 as the new airport engineer.
Was it lead and hire, or weren't they did this year?
They did interview, and they did good as well. I would say the top 3 that we interviewed all did very well. You could just tell when we interviewed Cattermass, Lee, and Jackson, they were hungrier, if you will, for the work. They definitely wanted the work. They did the background, they did their homework. They knew where we were at, what we needed to do. You could tell that they were on top of their game when they came to talk to us.
And I think the commission thought we'd get a little more attention from them.
That's correct, yes.
What's the wish of the council?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gushik, second by Councilman Wodergren. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Lime sludge removal, Central Mechanical LLC, award.
At the end of 2016 here, our contract expires for lime sludge removal, and so we went out for quotes for the removal. We solicited 5 potential bidders for that work. We received 2 quotes, one from Central Mechanical LLC and one from Fiber Sales. Central Mechanical was the low bidder at $111,875. That's over a 5-year period. And so, you can take that number and divide it by 5. That would start January 1 of 2017 and continue for the next 5 years. So we're looking at awarding that tonight to Central Mechanical LLC out of Little Falls to remove the line from the lagoons for the water treatment plant.
What's the wish of the council?
Make a motion.
Got a motion by Alderman Hurkak, second by Councilman Knopfler. Discussion?
Did Kleiber increase his bid quite a bit, or?
Not so much. His bid was, I'm going from memory here, from 11 to 16 is what his contract here was. It was around that $50,000 is what we paid each year. Historically, we had a lot more lime going up there in the past because we have a different source from the lime. In 2014, we actually changed suppliers, and so we went from roughly 100,000 gallons of lime and water up to the lagoons every day up to 25,000 gallons. And so that dropped down quite a bit. In 2015, 14, we ended up paying Clyber, I believe it was around $30,000 to remove the lime sludge. And then in 15, it was $35,000. 16, we didn't have enough to necessarily get the lime removed this year. We had one lagoon full, but it wasn't enough to necessarily warrant removal of that. And then with this contract, it was the total bid. He had it stepped, so I don't remember exactly what it was per year, but it was $200,000 over the 5-year period is what he quoted us.
Didn't we last year give him an adjustment?
There was an adjustment because of that 100,000 to 25,000 gallons. So we didn't have as much lime going up there ever since 14, since we switched the lime supplier. So there was an adjustment in it, yes.
Any other discussion?
Okay, so this is for the entire 5-year period, not
That's
per
correct. It's
year.
not each year is 111. It's for
Okay, I was wondering if we had to get that blue Chevy back.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Nothing under old business, new business, amend policy 12, public improvement.
We talked a little bit about this at our work session. In the agenda memo, you can see kind of the splits in terms of the costs that we incur for street reconstruction as well as the activities over the life of the pavement. Overlay has generally been the most expensive, since the prices of oil has gone up, has been the most expensive activity apart from the actual construction of the pavement itself. When we do an overlay, we expect it to last about 10 years, 10 to 15 years is what we look to get from that overlay. And that helps extend the life of the pavement. We are looking at updating the policy to include the overlay as an item that would potentially be accessible for against the properties. We would like to have it consistent with the rest of the assessment policy, where the left side of the street is 25% assessed, the right side of the street is 25%, and the city would pick up 50% of the project. So tonight we are asking the council to amend the policy to include that language in there where the overlays are assessed. But I know there was some discussion about that at the work session, and we can kind of continue that now if you would like.
What's the wish of the council?
I make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second? For discussion?
Second.
Got a motion by Mayor Zoka, second by Councilman Hanson. Open for discussion?
Well, I know there was a lot of discussion on it, whether or not we wanted to put the burden on the people on that street. And either way, I said in work session, it's gonna be taxpayers paying for it. So, should it be, I look at the amount, $800 for 80 feet, and that's, that overlay is year 20, correct?
Correct.
And I think that's reasonable rather than having somebody on the other side of town having to pay a larger percentage of it. So I'd rather we didn't have to, but we have to pay for it one way or the other. And as we have a discussion in the work session, we're never going to get caught up on what we need to do based on, you know, if you would touch on that story, Greg, on how many miles we have and how many blocks we do per year and try to gain on it, we're losing.
Yeah, the city of Little Falls has about roughly 100 miles worth of street throughout town. You know, by the schedule in the agenda memo, roughly 30-35 years is what we anticipate the roads to last. And so if you prorate that out, we should be doing about 3 miles worth of road reconstruction every year in order to keep up with that pace in terms of a new pavement every 35 years. Roughly, we've been averaging about 6 to 7 blocks worth of reconstruction every year, which equates to about a half a mile worth of reconstruction. So 3 miles is what we would have to do to keep on par with what we have today. We're only able to financially do about half a mile, so we're losing 2.5 miles worth of street every single year. So we're trying to do our best to keep up and keep the roads in the best shape that we can. We have started doing more with preventative maintenance, and we'd like to do more in terms of the overlay, but this is one way that we would like to be able to help pay for some of those improvements, because it is an expense that that the city will have to undertake and commit to in order to try to keep these roads in good shape.
So life expectancy on the road is 30 years. We do an overlay at 20,
True.
so then that's prorated out then, too, like a regular road life?
No, the assessment wouldn't, but the road reconstruction would. Generally, when you do a reconstruction of the road, it's about 3.5 inches of bituminous and 5 to 6 inches of aggregate. The overlay is usually only 1.5 inches to 1 inch of blacktop up on top. And so that would not be prorated out. That would be just the cost of that overlay.
So basically maintenance.
That's a question I was gonna have too, Mr. President. I'd be more agreeable to this if we had language in place already that protected somebody from being assessed for an overlay if their street was only in place for 20 years. If it goes over to, say, for example, 30 years and we're doing an overlay, well, then the assessment that had gone back historically would have run its course, right?
Typically, when we do assessments, they go over 15 years. And so the life of a pavement with curb and gutter, we're talking, is 30 years, yes. So we say if we reconstruct that road within 30 years, the gravel as well as the blacktop, then we prorate it based on the 30 years.
Okay.
So if in year 31 we do it, then there's no prorate, but if we do it in 25, it is prorated.
So what's the life expectancy on an overlay?
About 10 years.
Why would it be so much shorter than the original?
Because with the original, you're replacing the class 5, because the pavement is a whole section, all of it works together. You got the class 5 on the bottom, and then you've got about 3.5 inches of bituminous. With an overlay, you're taking 1.5 inches off the top and replacing that. Usually when a crack starts in the road, it starts from the bottom. So as it flexes, it breaks on the bottom and works its way up to the top. You're simply taking the stuff off the top and putting a new section over it. That crack will work through that overlay, but it's got to work through that 1.5 inches up on top. And so it's not as strong as reconstruction, and it's not going to last as long, but it will give you some life back to that road. The other alternative is if we want to continue down that road, we can look at doing this through the street improvement. Every year we budget. This year I think we're at $225,000. We could look at it, increasing that to cover some of these overlay areas.
So are my calculations wrong here? Just off the top of my head, we're looking at 16,000 for, is that a block?
Correct. Yeah.
We got an 80-foot lot, $800, so we got 4 on a block. Right?
On each side, left and right. Yeah.
So 8 times 8, 6,400. That's not 50% of 16.
The city would pick up because there's intersections in there as well. That's the difference of it. Because we pick up 100% of the intersections there.
Okay.
Greg, what's an example where we would do an overlay versus just a other maintenance issue like a cracked ceiling or
It depends on
seal coat?
how frequent the cracks are and how wide the cracks are. So we go around town and we look at the road and we give it a Paisley rating. The lower the Paisley rating, you're going to look at doing a mill and overlay. If it's a higher Paisley rating, say a 7 and 8, that's where we look at doing the fog seal or the slurry seal. So depending on the condition of the pavement, that's when we get into the overlay component of it.
And then with reconstructing roads, I know it's been discussed, our target and focus on reconstructing roads is when we can also do it along with utility improvements as well.
Correct.
Infrastructure.
So we look at both the infrastructure underneath, so the utilities as well as the road itself. If the utilities are in poor shape, and the road is in poor shape, then we'll look at doing a reconstruction. If the road's in decent shape, but the utilities are bad, we might put that off a year or two until the life of the pavement has been used up, and then we'll look at doing a reconstruction at that point.
So an overlay would be on a street that has a utilities infrastructure that's not going to be replaced within 10-year time period, but the road itself is beyond crack sealing, fog, slurry coat, slurry seal, crack sealing, something like that. So we significantly worse Pazer ratings, but the utilities underneath are fine.
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
So what causes it to get so poorly with all the cracks? What's the reason behind it?
Age as well as traffic.
So that's the question I was gonna ask, as we were talking about the less traveled roads being on following this exact same path.
Correct.
As far as timeline, so if it's live on the less traveled road, you may not have, the overlay for another 5 years or 2 years or
True.
whatever, depending
True.
on the traffic.
True. The cracks generally start from the bottom of the pavement and work their way up. And those are gonna be because of traffic. The top surface where you start seeing, the fines, getting taken away by the plow or whatever, that's gonna be because of the age of the pavement. And so those are gonna be more of a pavement that you're gonna look at doing the slurry seal or the fog seal, because they're still structurally sound. The cracks are tight together, they're separated 20 feet or so. You're not going to be looking at an overlay in those situations. The roads that are structurally deficient, you're going to be looking at an overlay with those, whether it's rutted or or there's a lot more cracks in it, then you're going to look at an overlay.
I remember Lindbergh Drive north, to see if the track go the length,
Yeah.
because they had more structure in the middle, must have added on to the road to the right, didn't have the same structure, all it just busted down.
Well, we have that over on 11th Street Northeast as well. In that case, that was because of how they laid down the blacktop. They had one path, and then the bituminous got cold, and then they put the second path along there. That didn't get compacted well enough in between there, so you can kind of see the way that it was constructed will sometimes dictate that as well.
And that's where I run into issues, is prime example is 11th Street, how heavily that's traveled, used by the public, day in and day out. And you got the old couple who lives in the, I don't even have to be an old couple, in and out of their driveway, go to work in the morning, come home at night, use the road twice a day, but there's 5,000 cars that drive on the road, and the road gets beat up, and now they're getting nailed with the reconstruction, or basically the maintenance on the road, as far as the way I look at it.
Well, we try to take that into account when we look at the assessments as well, and we'll see that on the 9th Street project. The residential properties, we'll assess them at the residential rates or so. It's consistent with the other 2017 or other projects that year as far as residential. And then the heavier use, so whether it's Coburn's or somewhere else that has a higher use, their commercial rate, they get charged the full amount. But we do try to take that into account and recognize that those mom and pops that are only in and out of the house driveway once or twice, those are residential house or properties, they don't get the full assessment on them.
Well, and I agree with you, Jeremy. The other part of that is the fog seal and the slurry seal entire, that's all taxpayers, so everybody's paying for that on the roads that they may not even travel on. And I realize that's much cheaper than the, I just don't, I don't know if it's possible to find something that's gonna be perfectly fair to everybody.
There's too many different situations. Like along the railroad track on the west side, the railroad doesn't pay any assessments, and then the people that live along that stretch, plus they have to maintain a thicker road.
Yeah, like on First Street Northeast, or Northwest, that's a good example. The railroad doesn't get assessed, but we didn't make the residents across the road pay more because of that. That was a cost that the city actually had to take over. And then the properties across the street, if they were commercial, they were assessed a commercial rate. the properties that were residential were assessed at the residential rate. So we do take that into account when we go through and look at the area in terms of their assessments of what they should be paying.
So how do we deal with the resident that comes in and says, well, you're gonna do an overlay on my street, but you never bothered to fog seal or slurry seal it and try to prevent it from eroding away, now you're gonna come in and assess me? What's the legality, and, you know, we always gotta prove value on assessment, and overlay's gonna improve property? How are we gonna stand up to that one?
Well, at $800, you can show that that's an improved value to the property. I mean, if it's painted black, you're gonna be able to show $800 in improvements on that property.
So you can throw a fog seal on it for $760 and show the same improvement.
I mean, you probably could, but I don't think we want to go through assessing on those small amounts. It's probably not worth it.
Well, I don't wanna go through and assess on any of them to reconstruction or new construction, but
Well, I'm just looking at the example here of 9th Street Southeast, and that's going to the school, so, I mean, any commercial property example works, but this one is specific and one that's on list for work coming up, right?
That's correct.
You know, I don't think it's asking too much for the entire community to pitch in to redo a street that serves a great share of the families.
Now, was that staff initiated, or,
That was a staff initiated project, yes.
because I know I've gotten a couple of calls from residents on that road that want it repaired,
Yeah.
so.
We did not get a petition, so that was staff initiated. We saw the need.
any other discussion? Questions, concerns?
Well, we can pick it block by block, I guess, and decide what we're gonna do based on that, and have a moving scale depending on, maybe count how many times each person drives on it.
Or we could just budget it in our
Maintenance.
maintenance?
Well, I can see your point too, Jeremy, that if we haven't done the fog seal, if we haven't done the slurry seal, and all of a sudden we do the overlay, I mean, I can see questioning that if we haven't done our part to maintain it, and all of a sudden it's beyond repair. And there are roads like that, and I know you said it before, John, that, you know, it's been a while since we've had a plan to do all this stuff, and it's gotten kind of out of hand. But it's like, I don't know that we should sock them for it just because it was the city's mistake that we didn't keep up with it. I mean, I'd like to see us develop that plan first and then proceed so that everybody's fair all the way around.
How are you gonna develop it when we're losing 2.5
I don't know,
miles a year? It's hard to
that's the
catch up that
problem.
way.
It's hard to catch up, I realize that.
Maybe that 10% levy wasn't such a bad idea to begin with.
You could go there.
Well, what's a person gonna be, you know, have another 5% on your levy, or have the $800 assessment? You know, what's it gonna be over time? Not only the one street, there's multiple blocks.
Well, and then we can look at that road going past the schools. An old couple living on the west side, do they ever drive on that road? So we're gonna assess, or not assess them, but they're gonna pay a share of taxes on that.
Well, when it was put in 1974, they might have had people using it.
Right?
And then you can run it right into garbage. How much garbage do you use? You know, you could, I think you have to establish something and go with it. And it's not like we've been negligent on repairing roads. It's been, we just didn't have the money. And people didn't want to pay a 20% levy increase every year. So, I mean, we could take care of the problem that way, but we're trying to help the residents, you know, keep the costs down, you know, as far as taxes. Now we have to come up with a plan on how we can save the roads we have, and someday maybe fall in where we are fixing, repairing 3 miles a year Probably takes some time though. Especially if we're going backwards.
Any other discussion?
Is this open to the public?
Not this one, no? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call?
Roll call, okay. Hurkak,
No?
Liljegren,
No.
Zilka,
Yes.
Hanfler,
No.
Hanson,
No.
Bushik,
Yes.
Knopfler.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Extension garbage contracts, city sanitary commercial service, and Otremba disposal. Approved, Lori? Or John?
As you know, we've been working on instituting a new policy for garbage pickup, possibly going to a hybrid system that would include carts and bags, and we are in the process of working with the haulers, negotiating, and trying to get that plan in place. Our current contracts expire at the end of this year, so what we'd like to do is extend the current contracts with the two haulers to continue to pick up bags until such time that we can implement the new policy, or no later than December 31st of next year.
What's the wish of the council?
I'll make a motion to extend the garbage contract.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Hanson, second by Alderman Hurkak. For the approval of the extension. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resignation of Joe Curtis, HPC Commission, Mayor.
Yes, we received resignation from Joe, so I would accept it with regrets. And make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mayor Zilka, second by Councilman Gushik, to accept the resignation of Joe Curtis. Any discussion?
Well, we should actually send him a letter of appreciation. He's been there for a long time. They don't get paid for them positions. And he's been there with HBC when they went through hard times and good times, so.
I agree, we should send him a letter. I'm on the same commission with him, and he done a good job. I hate to see him go, but it just interfered too much with his job, he said, so he said he would not.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution 2016-65, levy 2017, adopt. John?
Yeah, I do want to announce that there's a difference in what was sent out in the resolution that's in the packet and available for you. So the final levy is going to be based on these amounts. The general fund portion is going to be $1,912,000. Then that brings the subtotal for that line to $2,020,300, which brings everything else, debt service and market value-based referendum levies will stay the same. The total will be $3,697,800.
77 or 79?
79, sorry, excuse me, those numbers mix up.
What's the wish of the council on resolution 2016-65?
Make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Hurkak, second by Councilman Knopfler, to adopt resolution 2016-65. Any discussion?
Mr. President, I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to thank John and staff for the council charged them with trying to get it down below 5% and came in down below 4%. So thanks for all that hard work. It was very detailed, one of the easiest budgets I've ever dealt with to be able to read and understand. So thanks for the work.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, resolution, call the roll, please.
Liljegren,
Yes.
Zilka,
Yes.
Antler,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Bushing,
Yes.
Knappala,
Yes.
Hurkak.
Yes.
Carries.
Resolution 2016-66, Housing Redevelopment Authority levy, adopt. Lori?
Before you, the resolution 2016-66 is the resolution adopting the levy for the Housing Redevelopment Authority. By statute, we can levy a percentage of the tax, net tax capacity of the city, making the levy $74,800.
What's the wish of the council?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gushek, second by Councilman Liljegren. Any discussion? Hearing none, resolution, call the roll, please.
Zilka,
Yes.
Antler,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Bushing,
Yes.
Knappala,
Yes.
Hurkak,
Yes.
Liljegren.
Yes.
Carries.
Resolution 2016-67, budget 2017. John or Lori?
Yeah, I want to announce, the numbers that you see on the screen are the numbers that we would be approving. The resolution has been changed a little bit from its last, from what was sent out in the packet, so. In terms of general fund, we're at $5,184,950. HRA is the same. The Parks and Recreation is now $510,850. It's an increase of $800. Airport is the same. Water operating will be $1,631,600. Wastewater operating will be $1,978,000. Garbage and recycling is $652,000. Stormwater utility would stay the same. And golf course operating will be $445,475. And none of the capital improvement plan, or the capital improvement plan that was sent in the packet and presented before would also be approved with this resolution.
What's the wish of the council on resolution 2016-67?
I make a motion to adopt resolution 2016-67 with the changes as presented.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Hanson, second by Alderman Hurkak for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, resolution, call the roll, please.
Antler,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Bushing,
Yes.
Knappala,
Yes.
Hurkak,
Yes.
Liljegren.
Yes.
Zilka.
Yes.
Carries.
Council reports on any boards, bureaus, commissions, committees, anyone?
There will be a Camp Ripley Veterans Trail meeting Thursday, if anyone's interested. 5 o'clock at the Fort.
Anyone else? Staff got anything? Nothing? We will adjourn to a recessed closed meeting pursuant to Minnesota State Statute 13D.03 to discuss labor negotiations.
We will open to no action.